What's up, y'all? Hopefully it's not too windy. It's not too much ambient noise. You got cars in the distance. You got a little river thing right there. It's about to get dark, so I just want to go ahead and knock this out real quick. Also feels like a cold front's coming in. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'm prepared. I feel pretty cozy. Found my jacket. This jacket got me through a lot in recent years. Anyway, no, there's a certain subject I want to cover. I was talking about earlier, but my laptop died on me, so I was like, motherfucker. That's all trivial information. You're welcome. No, and I'm gonna take it to something that's very maybe the opposite, maybe not so trivial. So I'm all about science for one. Okay, I like science. I believe in evolution. I mean, we can see it. We got fossil record. What do you want me to say? We got DNA. You know, we understand DNA. We can switch it up, and you know, we can make translucent frogs and stuff. You know, it's all right there. You know, you'd have to. I believe my eyes. I believe reality. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I am down with science. Okay, we can look through telescopes and look and see there's tons of galaxies around us. Thank you, Edwin Hubble. It's Edwin, right? Hope so. Yeah, we can look out to the cosmos, look, see how vast this universe really is, and understand that we're just in one galaxy out of, you know, tons of galaxies, and there's hundreds of billions of stars within this one galaxy, and we're just circling around one. And you know, that kind of flies in the face of, you know, the Judeo-Christian belief that we are this super important species here on Earth, that everything was made for us, right? Anybody with a scientific mind be like, yeah, duh, you know. Oddly enough, a lot of the Judeo-Christian, teachings, you might say, seem to be very relevant in our world, and I guess I'll try to explain that. So first of all, let's look at a lot of people look at the universe and say, yeah, dude, the universe is huge. Like, why think you're special? I mean, a lot of people just assume there's life out there elsewhere. I have to say it's just so vast, you know, just be stupid just to assume there's not. But also we can look at the, you might say, the unlikelihood of this, set of circumstances that, is the planet, that allowed life to become what it is. I mean, first of all, we are part of a secondary star system, which means the first star, compressed a bunch of hydrogen together and created these heavy elements that burst out and created planets, including our planet Earth, that is rich with these, heavy metals and stuff that allow certain chemistry, which allow biology, right? And so that's part of it. Second is a certain distance from the star, so it's not too hot, not too cold. It is a certain size with a certain gravity, so it can hold a gaseous, atmosphere with, water vapor or whatnot, and allow the water cycle. And it's all part. It's a very, I have to admit, it's a pretty unlikely set of circumstances. It's very. All these circumstances just got hit right. The Earth tilts at a certain way, so as it rotates around the sun, it's kind of evenly distributing heat. You know what I'm saying? And kind of, and I mean, dang, there's a lot of stuff that's very circumstantial that is, wow, has water. Like I said, certain gravity that holds the water in. You know, if it was too big, there would be it would not allow the water vapor to even, we wouldn't have the water cycle, you know? And too small, it'll just evaporate into nothingness. Also, we have a moon. I don't know exactly. The moon has something to do with the tides. I know that, but also the moon. They say it's very large, you know, relative to the size of Earth, which makes them think, you know, it's large relative to the Earth, relative to the sizes of moons, you know, for other planets. And scientists that have, like, you know, theories of how that happened, they say maybe a collision while the Earth was forming, they just knocked a big chunk off and that became the moon. The moon also doesn't rotate. It just one side is facing us at all times as it, you know, rotates around, or, you know, orbits the Earth. And honestly, another very peculiar aspect is that it is the exact same size as the sun in the sky, or at least very, very close. And that's why we have these total solar eclipses. That's very peculiar. Honestly, to me, it's almost suggestive. It's like, wow, those are all, I don't know how it would be possible, and I'm not even gonna, you know, it's all very peculiar. That's all I'll, you know, say about that. And you know, we could say that the universe is vast, even the galaxy, whatever, and say, yeah, of course there's more life. But at the same time, what if this is just some, like, extremely nice set of circumstances in the middle of, you know, I don't know. I don't even want to say that, because I'm guessing there is life. But let's go back in history a little bit. I'm guessing there's life in other parts of the universe, right? Let's go back in history. So we go to Sumerian tablets. Zecharia Sitchin, you know, did his work with translating those and decoding them or whatnot. And he says there was Nibiru, and the Anunnaki, and they came to Earth and turned these upright, hairy monkey, what do they call hominins, into modern day humans. And that actually is kind of that hypothesis, you might say, is somewhat supported by the fossil record, because there is a leap in the fossil record from certain hominins that came before us, and there is a leap, that's why I say it's a missing link, and they've yet to find that. And there's kind of a huge jump in cranium, skull size, as far as I know. I'm not sure with all the details of that, but yeah, from what I understand, there's a missing link, right? So that kind of supports that theory. Zecharia Sitchin said that they came through to create a slave race of humans to collect gold to help them fix some planetary issue they were having. And that also, the fact that we value gold and that it has basically been, like, mined from every corner of the earth because we valued it, and now it's been consolidated into the hands of certain people, you know, you can almost say, like, bankers, and through their manipulation or whatnot, you know, that also kind of supports that hypothesis. And it's like, dang, you know. And also people talk about the Illuminati and royal bloodlines having some link to the Anunnaki or whatnot, and, like, being the designated rulers or whatever, and that plays a part too. You talk about the royal family, and they got a butt ton of gold, and it's like that all plays into the same story to some degree. And it's like, wow, that's interesting. It really is. That's whoa. That's a lot of dots connecting right there. Okay, if we move forward, we have the book of Enoch, which talks about, I think it talks about the Anunnaki as well. It talks about giants and stuff, and I read it, I don't know, it's random giants and drama and whatever, and it's similar. It seems like it's in the same, like, storyline. It's I don't know the details. I don't want to even try to paraphrase it because I don't remember all the details, but I know it has something to do with some random drama with giants or whatnot, Anunnaki, I think. And that was a book omitted from the Bible. And then if you go into the Bible, there's a lot of talk about Babylon. And from what I understand, Babylon was kind of founded on the same land as ancient Sumer. So it's like the same area at least. And Babylon is like the big, great enemy in the Bible. Like it says it, Old Testament kind of talks about pagans, and I think paganism has some root, maybe not, I don't know, I might be wrong here. I learned a lot of stuff from a church I was going to a while back. I'm not sure how legit that church is or things they teach, and a lot of other stuff out here on the internet, read, research, whatever. Trying to, pick up information here and there and put it all together, and that's kind of what I'm doing. That's kind of what I'm doing right here, is connecting dots. And so ancient Sumer and Babylon are like the same land. Babylon came after, if I'm not mistaken, and Babylon's the big bad wolf in the Bible, especially the New Testament. You go to the book of Revelation, and it talks about Babylon the Great falling. And so if you kind of trace, here's what I learned from the church I was going to. They said that Babylon had certain teachings, like with I think it was Nimrod or something, and then those translated into Egyptian teachings with the certain the Father, Mother, and the Son, and then that was incorporated into a lot of secret societies like Freemasonry and like Rosicrucians and stuff, and even the Kabbalah in Judaism. And the United States, for one, had a lot of Freemasonry influence, in its founding, and like even the statue, the monument of the national monument or whatnot. It's an obelisk, which is goes back to ancient Egypt at least. And so you can see that's all incorporated into the foundation of our this country. And when they talk about Babylon the Great falling, it makes me wonder, does that mean America? You know what I mean? And you look at the back of the dollar bill, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, it's all occult, esoteric, secret society stuff. And in the Bible, at least especially in the New Testament, it makes it pretty clear that is like the bad guy, the whore of Babylon and stuff. And if you look at what Jesus did when he came around, he was just going off on these the Pharisees. The Pharisees were like kind of the teachers of the law in Judaism, from what I understand. And he was basically just going off like, you hypocrites, you are basically just saying they're just going off track, and he's trying to point it all out. So from what I understand, there was the Torah, which was the old like Moses Jewish law, like the written law, and these Pharisees kind of had their the rulership or whatnot. I don't know, there were Levitical priests, which was the priesthood that kind of ran the whole Jewish tradition. They were like appointed as the people who kind of made sure that everything was done right. They were kind of like the authority through Judaism, from what I understand. And the Pharisees, I don't know the details, but apparently the Pharisees were like these the teachers of the law, and they kind of had like oral traditions that went beyond the the written law of Moses and whatnot. And the oral traditions kind of just got out of hand, and Jesus, I'm pretty sure that's what Jesus was getting on them for. If not, at least from that point on, I know they kind of kept creating these extra rules and stuff. And it's like there was Judaism that went beyond the Torah. It was like this whole extra set of teachings. And, I don't even know what you want to call that, but it's just like this oral tradition that is passed on in Judaism. And from what I understand, there's been a lot of the Babylonian stuff, incorporated into that, and in what they call the Kabbalah, which is part of that. And so the Bible is pretty clear in calling Babylon the bad guy, right? If you go to if you go back to the Old Testament, which is Judaism, they're always getting on them for worshiping idols, and they call them, don't be like the pagans, don't be these, whatever. When Moses came down with the Ten Commandments, they had created a golden calf, and they were worshiping it, and that's when Moses smashed the tablets on the ground, and he went back up and had to get a second set or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's always idol worship, and that's what they did in Babylon, from what I understand, a bunch of idol worship, and we're all about that flashy whatever, gold, silver, flashy lifestyle. And they basically said don't be like the pagans. And so I went to this church, okay? I'm just going to throw that in there because this church filled me in with a lot of stuff, and I don't know how true it all is, but this church is called, a lot of people say it's a cult. I don't even agree with it totally at this point, but it did make a lot of good points that I do kind of incorporate into, what I see as, what I see is going on in the world. But anyway, this church is called World Mission Society Church of God, and it's out of South Korea. And I'm gonna fill you in real quick. They claim that Jesus already came a second time, and he's the one who kind of revealed a lot of things that were wrong with Christianity. It's a long story, but I'll get into some of the details that they point out. There, who I heard, ancient Babylonian stuff was translated into Egyptian stuff through the Nimrod and whatever, into the father, mother, and son thing, the trio. And then that's even all the way into Roman Catholic with, I guess, God, Mary, and the son, baby Jesus, or whatnot. And the Roman Catholic Church, from what I understand, has a lot of pagan teachings incorporated into it. And this is stuff I learned at this church, the World Mission Society. And they said that it was somewhere during the Roman, the rule of Emperor Constantine in the Roman Empire, with the Council of Nicaea, that, they're kind of fearful that, the empire would be divided between pagans and Christians, and so they said let's figure out a middle ground. And during that Council of Nicaea, there were pagan teachings incorporated into Christianity, and one of those being, one of the main ones that this church talks about, is the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day is supposed to be the seventh day. You can see that the seventh day he rested. That's in the Old Testament, Genesis. And the seventh day, according to any calendar, is Saturday. And Sunday, on the other hand, was the pagan day of sun worship. And that goes, from what I understand, to ancient Babylon and stuff. And even Egyptian, if I'm not mistaken, Horus, the sun god or whatnot. And, and the most of these churches started, really all of Christianity, if you want to call it, they're kind of told to make Sunday the day of worship. And it actually says that in the Bible, in Daniel, it says they will change the set dates and times. And, Sabbath day is a major set date and time, And so the day of worship is supposed to be Saturday. And you can see that also, just the seventh day of the week. If you go in Spanish, I think it's called Sabato. That is Saturday, and that's Latin. Spanish comes from Latin, and Sabbath, you go all the way back. It's word root, you know what I'm saying? And so yeah, the Sabbath day is supposed to be a day of worship, and it's very in Old Testament, it says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That's like one of the 10 commandments, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the 4th commandment. Go figure, you know what I'm saying? And so a lot of pagan teachings have been incorporated into Christianity, and a lot of people don't know it. And the Roman Catholic Church is just like the epitome of that. And so they go, and they've been basically like the authority as far as Christianity goes. And there's a lot of stuff I learned from the church, and a lot of it seems legit, but some things they just rub me the wrong way, and I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but nevertheless, there's a lot of stuff that does seem true. And this church is very against the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church, like I said, they worship on Sunday. They've been kind of the authority in the Christian sphere for a long time, and we know that they have committed atrocities, just violence and whatnot. And I'll just point out a couple things. If you actually read the New Testament with Apostle Paul's letters, I think it's in either 1st or 2nd Corinthians, it talks about don't worship with your head covered. And as we can tell, the Pope always has his head covered. It's literally just like a clear, I'm not going to say abomination. It might be an abomination, but it's clearly in defiance or, doing the opposite of what the Bible says. What the Bible says, men are not supposed to worship with their head covered. And there's a whole thing about it in Corinthians, but the Pope always has his head covered. We could talk about idols, and how in a lot of churches there's crosses like up in the front, and even statues of Jesus, and people are all like praying to these statues. That's idols. And that's something that the whole Old Testament was talking about. And relevant. You could talk about the Passover. That's a whole different that's something relevant to Judaism, because that was the day, that was how God, freed the Israelites, the Jews, from slavery in Egypt. And it was a day to be commemorated throughout the ages. And so it was like a yearly tradition to celebrate the Passover. And what it was basically, there's a whole story in Genesis. The Jews went into slavery, and eventually Moses was born, and he wanted to try to free the Jews or whatever. And I think God commanded him to or something. So he went to the Pharaoh. He asked him like 9 times or something like that to free Jews. And finally God's like, all right, enough's enough. We're going to unleash a plague. But the Jews they had to do this ritual with a lamb, a pure white lamb without defect, and, sacrifice it, and then wipe the blood on their door frame above their door, and the plague would pass over them, and they had to eat it all before daybreak or something like that. Don't leave any. I don't know. You can read about it in the Old Testament. And that was the how God freed the Jews from slavery in Egypt. And that's all stuff I learned at this church, and all of that stuff actually talking about makes me like, I don't know, something to consider. Like I said, there's just certain things about the church that rub me the wrong way, and that's why I'm just not with it right now. Reviewing this stuff, it makes me feel like maybe I should get back in the swing of things with that church. A lot of people say that church is a cult, and I don't want to make this video just about that church, but I did learn a lot of this stuff from that church, and it does seem relevant to what's going on in the world. And so the Passover I'm trying to get back to with the Roman Catholic Church. The Passover was for the Jews originally, and then it was supposed to be something that they did yearly, and they kept the tradition. And then when Jesus came around, Jesus was a Jew, okay, and you can read it in like Mark, I think it's Mark chapter 16, if I'm not mistaken. You can read in Matthew, I think it might be Matthew 24, but he celebrates the Passover. But when he does it, he does it differently. They're not sacrificing a lamb or anything. He says, he breaks bread and he says, here, this is my body, eat it for the forgiveness of sins. And then he gives them wine. He says, this is my blood, drink it in remembrance of me, or whatnot. And so he is basically giving them his flesh and blood, as opposed to a lamb like they did before. In the Old Testament, it was a pure white lamb without defect. And as they say, Jesus was the Lamb of God. He was pure without sin. He was perfect. So he sacrificed himself, then, and gave his body, the bread and blood, to his followers. And he said, this is a new covenant. And so this is basically a new promise, that will free them from the, I guess one way to say it is from the slavery of sin, okay? And you can read that somewhere in Romans. It's like, I don't know. This a lot of this comes from this church. And so the Passover in the Old Testament was with the sacrifice of the lamb, blah, blah, blah. And that's what they did. They kept the tradition. And then Jesus came and he turned it into breaking the bread, unleavened bread or whatnot, and giving them wine. And that was supposed to be on the same date. It was supposed to be the same thing, There was no... Jesus didn't say do this once a week. But if you go look at the Roman Catholic Church, it does it every week. And they call it communion. And not only do they do it, not only does the people, the Roman Catholics usually have their head covered while they're doing it, not only do they have crosses and statues up there, not only do they got all this weird infatuation with Mary, who, wasn't really mentioned in the Bible anywhere as being significant, but rather kind of looks like the, mother or father, mother, son trio that was, same thing that was going on in Egypt and possibly Babylon. But they take the bread, and the bread's usually a little circle, and they do this. They get it, and then they rise it up on Sunday. A little circle rising on Sunday. You get what I'm saying here? It's basically sun worship. It's a little circle, piece of bread, and they're like, blah, 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 God, pray, da-da-da. And it's on Sunday. It's basically, with all that other stuff, head covered, it's basically, the Roman Catholic Church is all types of messed up, I'll tell you that. And so, even that aspect of it all has been, I guess you could say, bastardized and turned into something more or less Babylonian, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, sun worship, pagan. From what this church explained to me, the World Mission Society, Church of God, it explained that the pagan stuff, it all had its roots in ancient Babylon with Nimrod and some other stuff. And it all translated into Egyptian and kept going through different, I guess, traditions in various countries and stuff. It's always with the father, mother, and son. And you can see it in a lot of religions around the world. And from what I understand, from what this church explains, it all comes from that ancient Babylonian Nimrod thing. And so as you could tell, the Roman Catholic Church is kind of, just saturated with just, stuff that doesn't really go along with what Jesus taught his disciples and what the disciples taught, Christians there on after, what, Apostle Paul taught the Gentiles, whatever. And as the Bible says, Babylon is the enemy, right? And as we can tell, the Roman Catholic Church is, kind of just saturated with that Babylonian type stuff, the paganism at least, or whatever. And there's also some stuff that this church taught me, talking about, they point out a lot of stuff. And honestly, I remember when they first showed me some stuff, I was like, how do y'all know this? I've never heard anything like it. And that's when they told me that there was a second coming of Christ, and who taught them everything. And he basically taught them, that there's supposed to be a Passover, at a certain date, and it's supposed to be done like this, not like this. And also taught them about, they have some verses they point out with, in Daniel, it says like the beast or something like that will have rule for like times and a half a time or something like that, and then they take another verse and they're like, time, like I don't know, they translate it to a certain amount of years, and that goes back from like when the Council of Nicaea happened, and then the paganism got incorporated into Christianity up until the first Protestant movement in like the 1700s. And also there's a parable that Jesus tells his disciples in Matthew. It's called like the weeds and wheat, and he talks about how the devil sowed bad seed among the good seed while the farmer was asleep. And there's a whole parable about it. The disciples asked Jesus to explain it, so he explained it. He said the good seed are the people of God's kingdom or something like that, and the bad seed that the devil sowed are kind of just the people who aren't of God or whatnot. And roughly the way to say it is like, there was good teachings that Jesus, when he came through, taught people to follow, and that was the good people. And then the devil, came through and sowed that bad seed and gave them false teachings, and they were following these false teachings, and, they became the followers of those false teachings. And the people, the helpers of the farm in that parable, they asked the farmers, like, you want us to go pull up the weeds, and the farmer said, no, wait until they're mature so you don't accidentally pull up some of the good ones with them. And this church, so the World Mission Society Church of God, they kind of explained how there was that like 1700 year period between the Council of Nicaea and the Protestant movement, or however long it was. And so there's the Council of Nicaea is like 325 AD, and then like 1700, something like that, with the first Protestant movement with Martin Luther. And that period of time was the maturity period. He said, where the farmer said, don't pull up the weeds just yet because you want them to mature, and then when you do, we'll gather up the wheat and bring it into the barn, and we'll gather up the weeds and throw them into the fire. And so that whole time period, it was the maturity period. And then the Protestant movement happened, and recently, man, this whole church, the World Mission Society Church of God, has a lot of, pretty convincing teachings. I'm not going to lie. They have other stuff mentioning the formation of Israel and the return of Jesus. They have little prophecies. You can look it up on their website and stuff. I want everybody to look it up. I want multiple opinions, because, the more the merrier. Like I said, I'm not gonna say I believe in, but I'm in agreement with the fact that there is evolution, that there is many galaxies, there is many stars in this galaxy, and science. I can't just we could see that there's a fossil record, evolution, and we could talk about the ancient Sumerian tablets and saying the Anunnaki or whatever. I don't know if Nephilim and Anunnaki are the same thing. I have no idea. I think Nibiru is in the Sumerian tablets, and Anunnaki, I don't know what the Nephilim is. It might be something different. or I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure about that. I don't have that clarity. I hear the Anunnaki are supposed to be like some serpent-like people or something like that, and has something to do with the royal bloodline of the Illuminati and all types of stuff. And I hear the Nephilim were like half angel, half human or something like that, and possibly giants or something. I don't know. Maybe that's what the book of Enoch was about, was that. I don't know. Either way, pagan teachings, Babylon, secret societies incorporated into the United States. You know, it's all seems like it's part of it. You know, that church, the World Mission Society Church of God, it has its own take. It is really against the Roman Catholic Church. That's like its main enemy. That's what it says, that's basically like the bad guy with everything. And I can't help but to see that there is that, Freemason influence in the United States and how it's formed and everything. And even on the back of the dollar bill and whatnot. And Judaism, like I said, is corrupted. The Kabbalah has all that, Egyptian, Babylonian type stuff in it. Old esoteric, occult, magic, whatever. And, I also hear that there's 2 different types of Judaism in the world, or at least 2 different types. But from what I understand, there's Orthodox Jews who are waiting for the Messiah to return to, sit on the throne of David and kind of reestablish the kingdom for the Jews. And then you had these other Jews who I guess call themselves Zionist Jews, who basically, have established Israel on their own. And that's a rough, I don't know if those details are right, but that's roughly what I understand. You have Orthodox Jews who are still awaiting the Messiah to return, and then these Zionist Jews who kind of just bypass that and, have kind of created the state of Israel as we know it now, right on top of Palestine, no less. And the people who created Israel, okay, so surely they're not just going along with the old tradition, the Torah and whatnot, the Moses law. So they're probably all up in that, Kabbalah, whatever you want to call it, with the old stuff the Pharisees been teaching and stuff throughout the generations. And I know this, that the Rothschild, the infamous Rothschild bankers, they who might have ties to the Illuminati and the specific bloodlines and stuff, they had a lot to do with the creation of Israel. There's actually like letters penned to them, like congratulating them on their success and helping Israel become a state back in like 1948. And so that's all part of it too. And as I think a lot of people know, they have a lot of influence in the world, especially monetary system. Like I talked about, the gold seems to have all been consolidated through various means, with banking and stuff, and they're the major players in the banking world and whatnot. And a lot of it seems to go along with the old ancient Sumerian stuff. And but then it's also in line with the Judeo-Christian stuff. I'm like, like that's interesting. And it makes me wonder about a lot. What is the nature of the old ancient Nibiru and Sumerian tablet stuff? What's up with that? And how has that turned into Babylon being the enemy in Christianity and stuff, And why is Christianity so prevalent in the world? Why did it become so well known? Almost as it was kind of prophesied. It said, if you go back to the Old Testament, it said Abraham will, he'd have a lot of offspring and kind of something about many nations and stuff. I don't know. It's all like the most popular religion on the planet as far as I'm concerned. You got like Hindu and stuff in India, and then you got Muslim stuff, and that has something to do with Muhammad and some other stuff. I don't even know too much about that, but I don't know. It's just it's all very peculiar, and all seems to be playing a part in our world today. And like I said, okay, so I gotta stretch out my leg first of all. Ooh, getting a little bit tingly sitting like that. Got this freaking hole in my pants. Don't mind that. I'm sorry. I was walking over here and I snagged it. Sorry. So you can see a lot of that ancient Babylonian stuff, kind of coming to prominence. Like I said, through you can look at the back of the dollar bill, the pyramid, all-seeing eye, the random Latin phrases. It's all like that's occult, esoteric stuff. And like I said, the banking system with the Rothschilds and the Federal Reserve who prints the money, and all of the gold being basically consolidated into a few people's hands. The royal family owns a whole bunch. It's all been consolidated, and it seems to all be part of that to some degree. And you can even see it. People talk about the Illuminati and how there's like pop culture and rituals that you see like during like Super Bowl halftime show and stuff, like Beyonce and Jay-Z and whoever, Katy Perry and stuff. And like there's a lot of that. And you want to talk about pop culture, popular media. From what I understand, like Hollywood's controlled by these Jewish people, and Hollywood. I think probably a lot of the major just media companies are probably owned too. I think Reuters is like one of the major news companies in the world. I think that's owned by some of the Rothschilds, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems like all of that, a lot of the important stuff in the world kind of goes back to this Judeo-Christian, not Judeo-Christian, but more or less the Zionist Jews, whose religion has kind of been corrupted by the ancient Babylonian teachings and whatnot, with the Kabbalah and all that stuff. And like I said, that's what Jesus was like yelling at them for, from what I understand. He was yelling at the Pharisees, saying, "You hypocrites! You're empty tombs. You are you look good on the outside, but you're empty inside. And you're leading people into that same empty fate or whatnot." And and you can see that it seems to be the most. If you look at America, okay, so America was founded on Freemasonry with a lot of that esoteric stuff, right? And America is in cahoots with Israel, like straight up. It's like America has vowed to never betray Israel. It's like we'll always stick by Israel's side, and it even gives them like billions of dollars a year of borrowed money, no less. And we could talk about the banking system that exists and how it has economic control, and it really is. It's a major control factor in the world today, and America's the major superpower in the world today, and it's in cahoots with Israel, and that's all part of what's going on in the world today. It's all very relevant. As much as we want to talk about science and this is all extremely relevant stuff. And for instance, Henry Ford, he understood what was going on with these Jewish people. That was way back in like early 1900s, and he did a lot of studies on them. And he has a quote. He quotes if people understood how the monetary system works, like he believes there would be a revolution before morning. And it's like I said, Rothschild bankers play a huge part, and they have their old emblem. The Rothschild is like red shield, but their like symbol is the Star of David, or that's at least what they call it. I think another word for that is a Merkaba. It has something to do with old ancient Egyptian stuff and stuff like that. And then that's the same symbol on the Israeli flag. And but Henry Ford, he actually, I think he like hired people to like investigate the Jews and stuff. And from what he found out, like a lot of people who claim to be Jewish are actually of like some weird Persian descent. They're not actually like of the original lineage. Like I think they were like converts like way back in the day or something like that. And I mean, that's also part of it, maybe. So this is all relevant. I mean, as much as people want to talk about science, we want to talk about technological progress and stuff. Like, I could take this to, we have the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament. I think it was in Genesis, yeah. And I'm not sure, Babylon, if I'm not mistaken. So the Tower of Babel was a tower that these people were trying to make to the heavens, and like they're all working together and stuff. And God was like, "Hold up, we can't allow that. Let's break down the tower and then confuse their languages, and then kind of disperse the people into various countries and stuff." And so basically, the progress, the cooperative progress that mankind was making at that time was sabotaged because God didn't want it to happen. And Babel, I think that word means confusion, if I'm not mistaken. And Babylon, I think it's incorporated into the word Babylon, confusion. So that's also part of what's going on. Like there's a false narrative in the world. There's pop culture that just keeps people confused and not looking at what's going on and stuff. And but also the Tower of Babel, it was, like I said, it was a collective progress, or the cooperative progress kind of being sabotaged. And if we look at the economic control that's been happening in the world over the last like 100 years or so, there was the Industrial Revolution happening, and that was kind of sabotaged by World War I. And World War I started right after the Federal Reserve Bank was created in the United States, and it rapidly increased. The United States was borrowing money to fund the war, and it went into debt like right off the bat, and it went bankrupt in 1929, if I'm not mistaken. And right after that, there was what they call the Gold Confiscatory Act, and they basically told citizens to hand over the gold to the government. And then what's his name? Franklin Roosevelt, FDR. He created the New Deal, which basically opened up a new line of credit to borrow more money. And ever since, there's been more borrowing happening. Right after that, there was World War II. And there's more borrowing, and there's just been an accumulation of debt ever since. And two things to think of, to note about that is the Great Depression was basically caused by oh boy, riding a dirt bike, don't sweat it, he's chilling. The Great Depression was basically caused by basically cutting the line of credit, because the entire monetary system as it stands is borrowed. It's all credit, you know what I mean? The only reason we have like how should I say it? Pretty much every Federal Reserve note is a loan. It's borrowed, and it's created through a process called fractional reserve banking. And if it's borrowed, it's supposed to be paid back. So there has to be more money being borrowed than that's paid back, continuously, for there even to be a money supply. And it's just like perpetual debt, basically. And with that control over the money supply, it's already, there's loans coming in, there's loans going out. It could be controlled with the interest rate. If you raise the interest rate, less money's going to come in. If you lower it, more money's going to come in, because people are going to be more likely to borrow. So they can control the money supply, and when they do that, that affects the economy to an extreme level, and that's how depressions are created, and recessions, and then if you open up the line of credit again, it kind of brings back a certain level of movement in the economy. And what should have been a nice steady growth has turned into like turbulence. And the way I say it is like the economy's basically been sabotaged, just like during the Tower of Babel, when the Tower of Babel was being built, and humans were doing great things. During the Industrial Revolution, there's all types of invention happening, progress, and whoop, sweep the rug out from under them. And World War One started with it was basically sabotage. It's been sabotage ever since. It's been controlled ever since. And we can go further, man. I keep going on this subject. I'm telling you, this is stuff that's going on. It's been controlled. The human technological progress has been stifled. That's why we still use we use coal to generate electricity. We have gasoline burning cars. That's all another part of control. That's a finite resource that can be controlled. And I could tell you, I can verify this because I've studied plenty. There's been technology, for over a century that can replace, fossil fuels. There is. Nikola Tesla, right after he invented the induction motor, in a power plant in Niagara Falls, he also invented a way to harness what he calls cosmic energy from outer space. You know what I'm saying? He created a whole distribution system for it and everything. And if you study Tesla, you know about J.P. Morgan cutting funding for his Wardenclyffe Tower and everything. And J.P. Morgan, he's in with the bankers and stuff, man. And a lot of people say he was just kind of a face for the Rothschild banking regime or whatnot. I don't know how true that is. Either way, he was a banker. But yeah, the last century or so has been sabotaged economic progress, and that's why we're still using coal to generate electricity. And people want to talk about global warming. Having to do with fossil fuels. How about, the economy's been sabotaged. It has been sabotaged, and it's very. It reminds me of the Tower of Babel to a high degree because during the Industrial Revolution there was a lot of technology coming out and just this rapid innovation, and Germany was kind of one of the leaders in that field. And World War One kind of was started. I think something happened. A dude named Archduke Franz Ferdinand got assassinated, and then something happened. Somehow Germany was at fault or something, and they attacked Germany. England attacked Germany or something. World War One broke out, and Germany was kicking ass, and so was America. And the whole world was sharing ideas, and there was the Industrial Revolution, And honestly, at this point, the population growth has outpaced technological growth, and that's not a good thing. And that has everything to do with the world. And everybody likes science and stuff and whatever, but that's all relevant stuff. And so yeah, the last century or so has been just this sabotage and control. It's been control, establishment of control, and through war, and TV came out and it's been brainwashing people, pop culture, and manipulating society and getting everybody. Maybe they did that with newspapers before. I don't really know. But it's been more and more kind of population control of the population of the situation. And at this point we have a corporate oligarchy, so much wealth is confined, consolidated in certain people's hands, and everybody else is just these serfs. Everybody's it's slaves. And honestly, if you go into the Judaism, I'm talking about this, the oral teachings and stuff, they say the Gentiles were created by God to serve them. You know what I'm saying? They call them goyim. They're just these animalistic humans. That's what they consider them. There's all these teachings about it, if you don't even gotta help one if they're dying on the street or nothing, or if you cause the death of a goyim but don't do it by your own hand, then you're not responsible or something like that. And that's that goes right along with the type of stuff you can kind of, I don't know, let's say politicians starting wars but actually getting soldiers to do the dirty work. You know what I mean? That's similar. And Jesus was just yeah, y'all are evil, through and through. Y'all are evil. Doesn't matter what you're saying. Doesn't matter what traditions you follow. Your empty shells, your whitewashed tombs or whatever. And Jesus was going off on them like hard. And this is all relevant. This is all relevant to our time. As much as I like science, and I mean, we can talk about planets and we can talk about everything. This is all relevant stuff. And scientists especially should be mad. Scientists are always talking about, let's freaking get the space race going again. Let's do this, let's do that. Well, guess what? It's economic sabotage that's hindered it. That's why, scientists talking about global warming, let's stop it. Okay, well, if freaking Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower and his magnifying transmitter, transmission stuff, whatever we want to call it, is a apparatus for the utilization of radiant energy. If that was not, sabotage, if funding wasn't cut for that, we'd have been using some free energy. You know what I mean? It has everything to do with economics, and there's been, economic and technological retardation because of, monetary manipulation. Control of the monetary supply, which basically gives bankers control of the economy. And if you look at just the rate of exponential growth, like I said, the population has outpaced technology like by a lot, especially over the last century. But if you just look at the nature of exponential growth, especially that's how the economy would have grown. And but it was sabotaged in during with World War I. And it would have been just probably by the 30s. There would have been who knows, man? It could have been flying cars. I don't know. And I don't think it should go noted that World War I was started right after the United States started borrowing money from the Federal Reserve or the Federal Reserve. You have to understand the banking system. It's a certain way that it works. It works in a roundabout way. The United States really issues treasury bonds and banks buy them, but the banks get loans and stuff from the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve just creates that money through fractional reserve bank and just literally prints it. It's the nature of the monetary system. It's like the biggest fraud on the planet, and that's another thing that just baffles me. I'm like, okay, scientists, you talk about all this, you want funding for NASA, you want this and this and this and this, but you can't see how the banking system's like the biggest fraud on the planet and hindering, global progress. It's like, what is wrong with y'all? And honestly, we could take that back, and I'm talking about these Anunnaki roots with the Illuminati and the Rothschilds and the royal family and stuff, and how they're running stuff. And maybe we are the slave race of the Anunnaki, and they want us to be technologically suppressed. And honestly, I go further, and there seems to be what they call just this control system that's trying to be built around us with technology and stuff, and facial recognition, fingerprint scans, iris scans, just control with technology. And that's it looks like it's being played out by the Illuminati, and the Illuminati says to have is said to have ties to the Anunnaki, have a certain bloodline, or the half-breeds or something. I don't freaking know, some stuff like that. You can look that one up. That's something with the bloodline, an Anunnaki bloodline or Illuminati bloodline or something, and they seem to be the ones who are pulling all the strings, and this goes back to the Anunnaki, and maybe we are this slave race that was created just to get that gold and put it in their hands, and now we're here, did the job, and now they're just like, okay, let's just control these people with the with technology and stuff. And so I wonder about the Jesus thing, Christianity. I'm like, how does that play a part? Is that what is that? I don't even know how that plays a part in this whole thing. I consider the possibility that it is like a false hope, that we're waiting for Jesus to return. He's going to save us all. Or if we die, that we're all going to go to heaven and see Jesus. So we don't do anything to like rebel against this control system. I think about that. But then, like I said, I went to his church, the World Mission Society, and you can see Jesus, like, he was just like talking mad crap about the Pharisees. Like, y'all there whitewashed tombs, da da da. And it's just like, he represents a natural goodness, you might say. And it's like, to me, that's fundamental, and that's almost just like eternal, and not just eternal, but like universal almost. And I don't know, it makes me wonder what the nature of Jesus and Christian and all that stuff is. And you could go back to the Old Testament, they say the Babylonian stuff is the enemy, da da da, and it happened kind of like this World Mission Society Church of God kind of said it would, like with the times and a half and Daniel, and they changed the set dates and times, and the paganism get incorporated into the Roman Catholic Church, and they would have control for the times and a half for a certain amount of time before the Protestant movement. And then this church says that Jesus returned to set things straight, and he'll return a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting. That's a verse they use. And I read that verse in context, and it's like, I don't think that's what it meant. But that's what they try to say. And that's why I say this church, it has some stuff that just rubs me the wrong way. I don't really get with it like that. Like I said, I like multiple opinions, so you can go look at their website, World Mission Society Church of God. And but all of this stuff is super relevant, I'm telling you. As much as we want to talk about science and, progress and, technological progress and moving forward into the future and, possibly being a spacefaring civilization and stuff like that, you can't overlook the economic control. You can't overlook who controls the economy. It's this Illuminati bloodline, these Rothschild bankers who control the monetary system, all of it. It's all part of that. It's all part of the same thing. And you can't overlook that. It's relevant to our time. As much as I, believe in evolution, we got a fossil record, blah, blah, blah. I look in the telescope and see multiple galaxies and billions of stars in our galaxy alone. And we understand DNA, we can look at microscopes and understand stuff. As much as I can look at all that, this stuff is still relevant. It's not just like science is it. No, there's still this relevant drama on the planet, and it has everything to do with Christianity and Judaism and Babylon, da 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 da. It all has something to do with that. If it's nothing else, mythology of the Judeo-Christian mythology, and that, I don't know, I guess possible history, whatever you want to call it. It's all tied in to the Judeo-Christian soap opera, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know how true it all is. Like I said, I went to this church, the World Mission Society Church of God, and they taught me a lot of it. Now, I was already conspiracy theorist and stuff, so I already knew about a lot of stuff, and I was like, oh crap, like y'all filling me in with this, and this. I'm like, that fits in with what I already kind of understood. And now I'm just filling y'all in with the scoop, you know what I'm saying? And it's very relevant to our time. Everything. The economy is controlled. The human progress is controlled, just like the Tower of Babel. And it makes me wonder, like I'm saying, are we the slave race that was created by the Anunnaki, and like we already did the job of getting all the gold out of the earth and served it up to them, and now it's just like there's 8 billion people on the planet, and there's like, okay, well, let's just control them. And I mean, that's what it seems like. I don't know. I mean, I gotta give it to ourselves. We're intelligent. We're doing science, hacking into DNA and splicing genes and creating translucent frogs and doing all types of stuff. You know what I'm saying? We are intelligent people. We got CERN smashing atoms together and whatever and all types of stuff. We're intelligent. There's no denying that, at all. You know what I'm saying? The technology we created and everything. Maybe the Anunnaki, created a monster, you might say, something they couldn't control, and maybe they're just trying, and it's like, I don't know. Like I said, there's a fossil record that kind of supports that hypothesis or theory that, we were genetically manipulated, the missing link or whatnot. This is all so relevant. So relevant. It baffles me how you see scientists sit there and like complain about how there's not NASA funding for the space race, and how there's not how there's global warming going on, and ignoring the economy and how it works and the monetary system and the depressions throughout the last century, and just basically sabotage, sweeping the rug out from the world when the exponential growth starts going. It's every time we try to take off, it just gets pooped out by constriction of the money supply, artificial depressions or whatnot. It's like, how can these scientists want to act like the smartest people on earth, but you're overlooking the most obvious thing? What is wrong with y'all? I almost feel like they're in on it. I'm like, what's wrong with y'all, dude? Y'all are too ignorant. It's like, that is almost impossible to be that ignorant. But at the same time, I don't know. It really makes me seriously consider that they are in on it. They're just there to talk up a big game about science, this and that, but overlook the obvious. What is that? That's retarded. I don't know. I've done plenty of research. I can see all this stuff. There's plenty of people, conspiracy theorists out there talk about this stuff, whatever. Like I say, I don't know necessarily. I'm kind of I consider it all. I think about it all. I'm like, okay, it seems like I just try to figure out what's going on, and try to make the best move, I guess. And like I said, I'm on the fence about that church. I'm just some stuff that just doesn't sit right, but at the same time, they made so many points about all this other stuff with the Roman Catholic Church and stuff. I'm like, dang, like, seem to be on the right track with that. And I don't know. Either way, it's all relevant. It's all very super relevant. You want to talk about global warming, you want to talk about going to Mars, the moon, whatever, technology, and helping people live better lives. You want to talk about the current socio-economic state of affairs on the world with people being serfs and slaves to these corporations, other people in other countries, third world conditions, starving. That's ridiculous. You want to talk about all that. This is all relevant. You know what I'm saying? And still, it is too, I don't even know if it's just, I don't understand how scientists can just not even take that into consideration. I think about maybe the Revolutionary War in America. It's like almost like they fought wars over the monetary system. According to Benjamin Franklin, it's because the colonies were, I think like England was trying to get the colonies to like use gold, and they didn't want to. It was understood, It's like, I don't see how some of the most brilliant people on earth, or at least people that claim to be the most brilliant people on earth, can overlook that obvious, stuff. It's like, and they want to complain about, this and that, global warming, we need funding for space, and those don't mix with me. That doesn't sit right with me. It seems like those guys are, I don't see how they could be that dumb. I just don't see it. I just don't see how they could be that dumb. If they really are, then they don't deserve to be called smart, in my opinion. As much as they could be geniuses with certain subjects, like, whatever. If you're overlooking the obvious, dude, you're a dummy. Especially with history. We know that the Revolutionary War in America was fought over that stuff. We know it. And you got people out there, we got the internet these days, you got conspiracy theories talking about it all day. All day, it's being talked about. Everybody knows they've heard of the Illuminati at least, We had Occupy Wall Street talking about the 1% running everything, People are at least somewhat, briefed in as to the fact that there is some level of control going on. And it's like, that's enough. That was enough for me to investigate, And if scientists or whoever is just going to overlook that and try to continue a conversation without talking about that, I'm like, okay, y'all tripping. Like, there's y'all might be in on the gig, maybe. Same thing with politicians. Politicians always want to talk about, let's balance the budget. Okay, how about we look at the funding mechanism of the United States? Why is the United States borrowing money, indefinitely, going in like in a state of perpetual debt? It could be issuing money instead of borrowing money. That's a whole, and look at what it's spending money on and all that stuff. Like I said, ties with Israel and stuff. It's all super relevant stuff. So, those are the pieces I put together so far. So, I don't even gonna say I put them together. That's just like stuff I'm pondering right now. That's like stuff to consider. I don't know. I could be just totally off the wall with some. To me, all those pieces kind of fit, and it's making sense. I don't know. So it's something to consider. Like I said, this World Mission Society Church of God, they showed me a lot of stuff, especially with the church and how the Roman Catholic Church is corrupt and stuff. And a lot of people talk about the Roman Catholic Church, and then there's like Jesuit priests and stuff, and like there's some other like level of that. I don't even know how that plays a part. In the Roman Catholic Church, if you know like European history, they played a large role in a lot of the monarchies over there, like claiming they were ordained by God to rule and stuff like that, and also just the missions and stuff around the world. It all seems to play a part. So I just don't see it being something that can be ignored. All this stuff plays a part. It's all relevant. And I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out. I really don't know. I really don't know either way. Like I said, I'm on the fence about the church, and I'm just trying to figure it out. And I figured I'd share my thoughts, maybe. I really don't know. I don't know. I like to know what's going on. And honestly, one of the things that irritates me the most is the economic and technological sabotage, man. There's no telling where we'd have been by now. And I'm like, dang it. And that's what gets me. It's like, how do these scientists talking about global warming overlook how the economy's been sabotaged for the last century at least? It's like, dude, that has everything to do with the reason, with the fact that we are using coal to generate electricity still, and fossil fuels in cars, and that has everything to do with that. And the fact, that's like, seems like intentional ignorance right there. I'm just like, what is that? It's too, hello, wake up, slappy slap, something. So anyway, I just figured I'd talk about stuff and relevant, right? Relevant. I don't know really where to end this video, because like I said, I'm still, pondering. You go look up that World Mission Society Church of God Church, look up their website, just Google it, whatever, check it out. Yeah, you can see a lot of what's happening, and it's all relevant. It's relevant. The control system, I think, is coming up. It might have something to do with the mark of the beast system in the Revelation. And a lot of people talk about the mark of the beast. They say in the right hand or the forehead, you can't be able to buy or sell without it. And money, they're trying to make money digital so they can like remotely control it, from what I understand. The bankers, they want to control the money supplies and everything. And if they can remotely control it, have all your money on a little like microchip or something, they can cut off your money supply and you can't buy or sell without it. And if all your money's on a little microchip that's inserted into your right hand or forehead, like the Bible says, mark of the beast, then you can't buy or sell without it. That could play a part too. That church says it's something different. The World Mission Society Church of God says it's mark of the beast was like, I forget what it said it was. I think it said it was something different though. Like I said, I'm in lieu. I'm pondering this stuff right now. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know the details of everything. That's just like, it's just pieces I'm like kind of piecing together. Like, I'm just trying to share my progress with you, I guess. I'm sure there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that have been like pondering this for a while, and maybe got some other pieces to add on. So I don't know. Whatever. I just thought I'd do my part and share, my progress in that direction, maybe. So yeah. Anyway, we got a beautiful pink sky coming out. It is beautiful. I'm gonna let it do what it does. I'm gonna chill. You know, I still love nature. I still, you know what I'm saying? Like, I still like science for, you know, giving me insight about a lot of things and just, you know, kind of enriching my life experience. Just, you know, seeing how rare this earth is and everything like that. And I can't say that all that Judeo-Christian drama is not relevant, because it really does seem like it is. And yeah. Yep. I guess I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna enjoy the sunset, get out of here pretty soon, and do what I do. Thank you guys for listening. I don't know. I would say share this, but I don't want, you know, the Illuminati seeing I'm letting out all their secrets and then, you know, being like, that guy. You know, this is just kind of for anybody who's interested. I'm not trying to burst no bubbles here. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. It is what it is. I'm just trying to chill. Live my normal little life. Hopefully I didn't say too much. I'll shut up if I got to. So, whatever. No problems. Anyway. I don't know what the future holds. What is going on, you know? I don't know what it's all about. I don't know the details of everything. You know, it's just stuff I'm trying to figure out, you know. That's where I'm at. And trying to figure it out, I guess. And you know, it all seems relevant. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you guys for listening.